So it's always difficult to figure out where to begin when trying to discuss the topic of the so-called New World Order, what it is, who's behind it, where it came from. I think we all know by now that the NWO, or New World Order, represents a one world system, a one world currency, and a one world religion. The one world system, in my opinion, is the internet. It connects everybody. The one world currency, in my opinion, will be the cryptocurrency, or Bitcoin, or something else along those lines. And the one world religion will be a Gnostic, Kabbalistic, New Age, Luciferian religion, or the religion of the Serpent. It's completely wrong because it puts too much power and control into the hands of a few. So the first thing to realize is that our current form of government, especially in the United States, is an oligarchy, ruled by the hidden few. The puppets that appear on center stage are blackmailed stooges. This can be proven by reading former Bill Clinton professor Carroll Quigley's huge opus, Tragedy and Hope, where he admits the two-party system in America is a complete sham, and that the Council on Foreign Relations, the largest think tank in America, where all presidents go to speak, was set up by a secret society in Britain, the Round Table, which was set up by an older secret society called the Society of the Elect, which was set up by Freemasonry. Now, I dislike the term New World Order for two reasons. One is because it's been overused to the point where skeptics automatically think they've debunked a person just for using it. It's almost like it's become a weapon for skeptics. And the second reason I dislike it is because people throw the term around without really understanding what it means. Now, we all know by now that not just hundreds, but thousands of world leaders have used the term New World Order. And every time someone uses the term, it evokes a childlike reaction from so-called conspiracy theorists. Like, aha! We gotcha! But we really didn't get them, did we? Do we really understand what the term means? Let's take a look at the most famous usage of the phrase. From Skull and Bones initiate, Bohemian Grovesman George H. Poppy Bush, who used the Masonic Bible during his inauguration.
We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order, a world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations. When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founder.
When he uses the term, he makes sure to emphasize that the United Nations will be the catalyst to bring it about. And that is key. Why? Because do you know where the United Nations came from? It came from an older organization called the League of Nations. And who called for the League of Nations? Well, I have the minutes of the Grand Orient Masonic meeting in Paris in which Masonic delegates called for the formation of the League of Nations, years before it was formed. The Grand Orient of Freemasonry created the League of Nations, the precursor to the United Nations. All this nonsensical climate change propaganda from the child actress, the coexist movement, the interfaith gatherings that follow certain psychological operations, all of that is Masonically constructed from the United Nations. And we'll expose all that in depth as we go along. But first, I want to introduce two books to you. One is entitled Father of Lies, written in 1938 by Warren Weston, and the other is entitled The Trail of the Serpent, written in 1936 by Christina Stoddard under the pseudonym Inquire Within. First, let's read from the Father of Lies, and this is the introduction. Quote, "The serious reader may be aware already of the plan for a one-world super government. The plan stipulates complete equality for all, that is, reducing everyone to the same lowest human level. To preserve the appearance of individual and national freedom, a superficial form of democracy is being established in all lands, but the control will rest in the hands of the hidden would-be rulers. According to the plan, religion, which exercises a tremendous influence on human lives, is to be homogenized. The principal faiths today differ in their conception of God and what is right. Moreover, belief in God and in truth, freedom, equity is incompatible with the idea of complete equality, since this belief inspires men to develop their several innate talents and to rise to higher planes. Hence, in order to homogenize religion, the plan would substitute for the worship of God the worship of man. Let me read that again. The plan would substitute for the worship of God the worship of man. That is the religion of the serpent. The worship of man is rooted in many primitive cults. These appeal to the lower instincts and engender hate, malice, deceit. They are the basis of occultism today. And throughout this book, Warren Weston keys on Judaism, the Kabbalah, the Talmud. Why does he do that? Well, many Christians are oblivious to the true nature of Judaism, what it is, and how it's affecting our modern situation. And you have to understand that these so-called Jews aren't really Jews. They're what Revelation calls them, the synagogue of Satan. And the key to understanding that is that very few so-called Jews today follow the Old Testament. The Karaites are the only ones, and they're a very, very small sect of Judaism. The rest of them study the Talmud, and that is an off-branch of the Pharisees, the very sect that Jesus Christ condemned, and the very sect that put Jesus Christ to death. Very few Christians understand that, but as we go along in this series, we're going to figure all this stuff out. All right, the other book is entitled The Trail of the Serpent by Christina Stoddard, written under the pseudonym Inquire Within. She was a high priestess in the Stella Matutina Lodge, an off-branch of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. So she left that lodge and started to expose what she saw as the true nature of all these occult societies. And here's what she said in her introduction. Quote, "Going back to patriarchal times, we attempt to trace step by step the worship of the ancient serpent, the creative principle, the god of all initiates, from the early Kabiri through paganism to the pseudo-Christianity of the Gnostics and Kabbalists, these latter largely emanating under the influence of the Hellenized Jews of Alexandria. We have endeavored to prove that the aim, in the higher grades of these varied mysteries and cults, is to awaken this serpent, the sex force, or God within man, raising it by processes and yogi methods, uniting it with the universal creative principle, without developing the latent senses, or so to say, deifying the adept, but only that he may be enslaved by some astute outside and stronger mind, or group of minds, who it would seem seek to rule the nations through hypnotically controlled adepts. For one and all of these modern mysteries are dominated and ruled by some unknown hierarchy. Just as in the ancient mysteries, the Egyptian high priests were the masters of the old world, through their knowledge and power to manipulate these invisible serpent forces, the magnetic forces of all nature, by means of which they bound and dominated the mysties, and even the epops, and through them the masses. These revolutionary mysteries first appear as pseudo-religions, until by means of some kind of seemingly religious uplift, the necessary link with the master mind is formed. Then it becomes openly political and revolutionary, subverting all aspects of the nation's life, seeking by internationalism and universalism to unify all people, socially, economically, politically, in arts and religion, preparing for some new era, some new heaven and new earth, or as we say in the modern day, some new world order. We have finally sought to materialize these invisible masters, and allowing the Kabbalists to speak for themselves, we arrive at the revolutionary and Kabbalistic Jew, the most cosmopolitan of peoples, who look for the coming of their messianic era. To some of these, the Messiah is their race, and their race is their God. The Tetragrammaton, the creative principle, the serpent power, binding and unifying, leading to the hope of merging all races, all faiths, under the law of this, their unity of race, thus creating the Greater Judaism spoken of by the Jewish world in February of 1883, unquote. That's a lot to digest, but we're going to go over this as we go along in this series. Is Christina Stoddard correct? Does everything lead to the Kabbalistic Jew? What is the Kabbalah? Where did it come from? How do we define Jew? Like I said, most Christians have no idea that Rabbinic Judaism is the religion of the Pharisees, the self-worshipping sect that Jesus Christ condemned. We'll be going through all these issues and how it intertwines into our modern situation as we go along.